One of the most important skills that you can learn in the shop has nothing to do with tools, but it has everything to do with our mindset when it comes to us dealing with our own self as perfectionists. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've got it all figured out, because Lord knows I surely don't. I am still a type person that is a struggle for me when a project gets to a point and something messes up that I just don't want to take it out back and light it on fire. I jokingly say that every project I build typically has a burn it phase. It's just where I just want to go out there and I just want to light it on fire and burn it and just start over. Because there's always going to be something that sneaks up on us, and that we had no plan for it to happen this way, but it just did. For some reason, something goes sideways. And what I want to do is I want to talk about this because I know that I'm not alone. I've seen the comments out there, and I know that I'm not alone when it comes to this. I want to talk about why this is. Are we just bananas crazy? What's the story? So I think a couple of things is, one, I think that woodworking in general kind of draws perfectionism because it's got everything that a perfectionist would love. It's got measurements. It's got right angles. It's got all of that kind of stuff that is precision. It's, especially like if you like precision tools, man, you can spend whatever you want to spend when it comes to precision tools. So like you've got all these things and all of these tools at our disposal, and we spend tons of money on woodpeckers or Festool or all these things to get all of this precision, and then still something somehow goes sideways. That's one of the reasons I think that it's just natural for us as woodworkers, as makers, to be drawn to this craft is because it's kind of built into it. I think the other thing too is that there is kind of this whole trap. There's this online effect where we see things online, and we forget about the fact that there are filters, there are certain camera angles, there are lots of little tricks and things to projects that actually are not quite as perfect as maybe we might think, and we just don't realize it at the time, and so we compare ourselves to some of those things that we see out there, things that we would consider Pinterest worthy or whatever, depending on your thoughts on Pinterest. But we have that, and then of course there is this lie that we tend to believe anyway, that any mistake ruins the entire project, and it's just not true. Mistakes don't ruin the entire project. Sometimes they can. Okay, I remember I was building a cabinet and I built 2 doors, and they were like, I mistook like a 7 for a 5, and so I built the doors like 5 inches, or a 7 for a 2 maybe, and I built the doors like 5 inches too short. There's no salvaging that, right? Like, we just get to go ahead and call a spade and say, okay, I screwed up. Unless I'm going to intentionally later on build some cabinets that will fit these doors, that's just on me, and I got to eat that and go on. But that's not every project. That's not everything that we go through. I'm working on a project right now. We're building a wet bar upstairs, and as we're building this, I made several mistakes. One was just like right off the bat. I started to drill a pocket hole on the wrong side, and I'm using pre-finished plywood, and it's pre-finished on one side, and that pre-finish is going on the inside of the cabinetry. Well, naturally, I put a pocket hole on the inside accidentally. And I didn't get it all the way through, but it was enough that it's definitely noticeable. And so it was the very first pocket hole that I drilled on that side, and I was like, well, do I just take something back, burn it, or do I figure out how to back up and punt? And I said, you know what? It's going to be inside of a cabinet. It's a lower cabinet. Nobody's going to see this except me and the plumber. Like when he comes to put in some plumbing, that's about it. So I put it to the back corner. I'll throw a little bit of wood filler over it, and we're going to call it good. And here's the deal. I feel like for me, that's progress, right? And it may not seem like a big deal, but for me, like old Jeremy would have probably thrown that in the back and lit it on fire. So progress. Let's talk about another mistake I made on the exact same project. I built so I'm building, it's kind of an L-shaped bar. So I'm building it as two cabinets. They're about 48 inches or so long. One side's a little bit longer than the other, but so I'm building this L-shaped type bar. So I build one cabinet, build the other, and I'm going to have drawers above and doors down below, just typical like you'd see in a kitchen or whatever. So I go to the second cabinet that I build. I get the face frame and everything put together. I attach it, everything. I'm like, it's all just coming together so perfect, right? Like on the second cabinet, the face frame was squared up even better on it than the first one did. Like everything, it was a perfectionist dream. So I tell Jess, my wife, I'm like, hey, you want to help me take this upstairs? We'll put it in place, kind of see how it's going to look. Take it up there. We're looking at it, put it up there beside the other one, bump the other one up beside of it. And I go, oh my God, I left out the divider for the drawer. So now I've just got like this one giant door space. Well, it's not, it doesn't work for the design because we want this to all be matching across here on both sides. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I've already painted it, everything. And again, there I am in burn it mode. And I'm trying to not just go, just say, well, we're starting over and building a new cabinet. And I decided like, okay, I'm going to like calm down. I'm going to take some time and I'm going to cut a piece that's going to go in there. Now, again, I'm a perfectionist. I don't want you, when you look at my face frames, I don't want you to be able to see where the seams are at from my joints when I'm done. Like, I want you to be like, holy crap, that's one giant face frame that just like magically looked like it was manufactured from a CNC. That's the problem too, by the way, is that we are comparing a lot of stuff to that CNC type stuff, but I digress. So I get this thing and I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut this. And so I cut the piece that's going to be the divider for the drawer and I put it in and I go up and I test fit it and it's just a little bit too tight. So I bring it down and I just shave it just a little bit and I get it just perfect to where it's going to be almost too tight because I need it to be tight because it's going to be a little bit hard to put that in there. If you've ever used pocket screws, because I pocket screw my face frames together on the back side, they tend to pull and they want to shift that board when they make that attachment. And so if I'm going board to board like this, it's going to want to try to shift it just a little bit. So I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out a plan. So I clamp another board on the front of the face frame. I put the new piece that I'm going to put in there. I get it exactly in there. I clamp it down to that so that I'm trying to minimize everything that I can to get rid of any possibility of something shifting when I pocket screw this together. I put spacers in to make sure I have exact same distances on both sides. So everything's perfect. I pocket screw it and it comes together and it looks really good. Now it's not perfect. And if I want it to be perfect, I can go back with some wood filler over those joints because you can still tell there's a joint there, but it didn't shift the joint to where it's sitting proud of the other side or anything. It all stayed flush, thank God. And that's just a simple example. I say a simple example, it seems a little long-winded, but it's an example of, how do we deal with these things and how do we kind of see and learn to have progress? Because for me, again, that may not seem like a big deal to you, but that kind of stuff is progress for me because there are times that I've literally scrapped projects over less because I want it to be perfect. I haven't decided if I'm going to go put wood filler in and then like repaint that little joint. And nobody's really going to be able to tell. It's going to have a drawer front that's going to cover up most of it. It's going to have a door that's going to cover up and there's going to be like a little thin strip between the two. I'm going to know it's there. I don't know. Jess may veto it and just be like, you know what, this is silly. Don't worry about it. Because again, it looks pretty darn good. Now, you have to understand that with all of that as a recovering perfectionist, I guess is what I would, call myself. I have to understand, and you have to understand that we've got to put some tools in our toolkit. Here's a couple things you can think about. If I go up to a project, I finish a project, I work on something, and I know there's an issue, the moment I know there's an issue, if I look at it from 5-10 feet away and I can't see that problem, the problem really doesn't exist because Nobody's walking around with a magnifying glass going to our projects and looking at them, except maybe us. But nobody else is doing that. So remember that. If I can't see it from 5 or 10 feet away, it really doesn't exist, right? So that's the first thing that we got to understand. The next thing is maybe we see ways to see mistakes as design features. Now, I've honestly not used this a whole lot, but I definitely know that it's possible. In other words, maybe this is a point where we go, okay, I'm going to stick a dowel in here and I'm going to use something that has a, why is the word leaving my brain right now, contrasting color. You know, maybe it's something like that. I'm going to use a contrasting color with dowels or something. Maybe I'm going to use some kind of inlay in this knot that decided to go bananas and do something crazy. Maybe, you know, whatever it is, I'm going to figure out a way to use that as a design feature because, again, when we're dealing with this stuff, wood is a living organism and it's constantly moving and changing, and it's got little secrets in there that we didn't know existed. I remember my dad, so I grew up with, my dad works and has a sawmill. I grew up cutting lumber my whole life when I was a kid, and it was always so crazy. You'd see it, we'd be cutting a log and everything would look fine on both ends, and you'd be cutting through this log and all of a sudden, boom, the whole log's hollow. You get to the middle, you had no idea. Sometimes that kind of stuff just happens, right? And so we have these things that are just out of our control. And so we have to look at it and we say, how can I take this thing that happened that's out of my control? How can I make that a design feature? What can I do to not just absolutely lose my mind and take it out back and burn it? So I think, first of all, I really feel like I've used that example a lot. But anyway, I think that those are a couple of good things that we can think about when it comes to this mindset shift. And the other thing that we have to remember is that the process is probably just as important as the product, probably more important, honestly. So, and what I mean by that is that if we take a process, if we're building something and it takes us 10 hours to build this widget or this thing, whatever it is that we're doing in the shop, it takes us 10 hours to do it and we're miserable the whole time because we're so frustrated, all these different things. And then the last 10 minutes of it, we're like, oh, thank God this is over with. I feel like we missed the point of what we're doing in the shop. If the process is not, if we don't learn to appreciate the process as much or more as the end product, I think that it will always kind of drive us batty. And so my question to you is, as woodworkers, as makers, DIYers, wherever you land in this whole spectrum, where do you land with this and how do you deal with it? These are some things that I'm trying to do, but I would love to know what you've got in your toolkit, or maybe some things that just drive you crazy. Let's keep the conversation going.